Schwab Advisor Services is a proud supporter of the RIA Edge Podcast and independent financial advisors like you. When it comes to your independence, Schwab Advisor Services is all in. They provide industry-leading custody services with no AUM minimums, no custody fees, and digital onboarding for starters. With Schwab, you'll be backed by some of the most passionate folks in the industry with over 35 years of experience helping firms of all sizes. To learn more about everything Schwab can do for you, visit advisorservices.schwab.com. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the RIA Edge Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is David Armstrong. I'm the editor of wealthmanagement.com. And this, as you know, is the podcast where I get a chance to speak to executives and principals of RIA firms on their story around growth, how they're growing the firm, how they make the decisions to grow, where they choose to deploy their resources. And today I'm thrilled to be speaking with Michael Conway, the CEO of Conway Wealth. Michael, thanks very much for joining us.
David, thank you for having me. Looking forward to chatting today.
I appreciate it. So for those folks who don't know, could you just give us the 101 on Conway Wealth, where you're located, the firm, the size, the clients you serve, and your value prop?
Yes, for sure. So Conway Wealth, I've been doing this a long time. It's interesting. You, I think, on your podcast talk about grow by design, not by default.
That's right.
Right? So we at Conway, we talk to our clients about live a life by design, not by default. So we'll unpack that a bit today as we chat. But really, the value proposition has to do with what we do at Conway, a lot around live a life by design, not by default. So we do comprehensive wealth planning for wealthy individuals, but then we go really deep. We want to do all the deep planning, and then we want to go into all other areas of life. So we do money management, insurance planning, again, retirement cash flow, all of it. But we go very deep in the overall relationship with the families that we work for.
Okay. And when you say go deep into the relationship with the families that you work for, can you give us just a bit of a profile of those clients, of those families? Are we talking mostly
Sure.
high net worth individuals? Or
yes, mostly high net worth individuals. And one of the main features that we like to talk about is clients or prospective clients that are family stewards. And so as we get to build these relationships, we're going to ask a lot of questions and even go into other areas outside of financial planning. So we have something we call the Life and Wealth Network. And with that, we talk to our families about, we want to quantify not just investment gains, but gains in other categories of life that actually create lasting happiness, and again, life beyond the numbers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. This is something I think we hear more advisors talking about recently. It sounds like you've been doing this for a while, but advisors recently talking about the movement towards wealth and health, aligning goals, and what does wealth really mean for you? It doesn't mean the same thing for one client that it might mean for another. And how do you as an advisor help clients kind of determine what's important to them, and that largely will determine where their bar for wealth is, right? And everyone's a little bit different. I guess life coach kind of a scenario. Is that accurate?
That is definitely accurate. So I always talk about, so families, anybody can manage money and do the detailed financial planning that we speak of. And you've got, the way I refer to it is, you have to be a Navy SEAL with this stuff, right? You can't take any of this deep planning lightly. But then going beyond that, how can we help a family in these other areas? So health is always a big one, right? So imagine you have, and we talk about the types of families we work for, and somebody has $3 million, they have $50 or $100 million. But on a scale of 1 to 10, just to use the health as an example, there are 3. Well, you've done all the cash flow modeling, you've done all the financial planning, but but they're not going to live to enjoy the fruits of their labor. So is there anything we can do to come around that family and possibly refer solutions that can help them live a better life in that regard, with nutritionists or concierge medicine or food delivery programs or trainers or workout solutions or whatever? But those are things, if we can add value in these other areas, we're definitely looking to do that for the folks that we work for.
Yeah, that's interesting because I imagine that requires, like you say, you have to be a Navy SEAL when you do this, and you do this on a bespoke basis for each client. Requires a fair amount of time and resources that you're choosing to spend there, as opposed to building out yet another referral machine or acquiring another firm or growth by just bringing more clients in the door. So at some point you made a decision to say, if we concentrate deeply on the clients that we have versus trying to get as many clients as we possibly can through the door, that's our path forward for growth. Is that how you look at the roadmap?
Definitely. I think of this, if I'm a client of this business, and the way I look at this, if I had an advisor and my advisor was helping me with all of the financial planning, table stakes, and then went deeper for myself and my partner and my other family members, guess what? That is wildly enjoyable and rewarding as an advisor, but go figure, it's also good for business. If we can send somebody on a wonderful vacation, now we're not planning the vacation, but we'll have solutions in that regard. Or if there's a relationship issue, we can bring in consultants. So all of the deep planning and solving these other areas, but yeah, go figure, it's good for business, because as it relates to advisors that want to work in an environment like this, or our clients introducing us to other people going, hey, these people do all of the deep planning and life beyond the numbers, as I keep going back to, and all these other areas. So it's really good for business as well, for sure.
You find that the organic growth from happy, satisfied clients being your advocates out in the larger world is the driver there?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. As our clients talk to their friends who have advisors at other firms or big investment banks or whatever, they're not getting your word, the bespoke type solution that they would get from a Conway Wealth. So that is a growth engine for sure.
So tell me about the resources that you rally to do this kind of life planning work. There's, I'm sure, stuff that you have internally. I know you have some process, some alignment process that you use that I think is yours.
Yes, correct.
Explain to me about that, how that works, because I think this is a proprietary method that you guys deploy yourselves.
Yeah, so I remember when I first started in the business, I couldn't wait till I was doing this 10 years so I could say, yeah, I've been at this a decade. Now, I wouldn't mind taking a couple of those years off, but I've been at this multiple decades and am a user of a lot of the solutions that we've deployed. So being a student of the business and using a lot of these solutions, whether it's vacation solutions or travel solutions or food nutrition programs, I have gone out over the years, over the decades, and looked at different solutions and brought them into our network. And we continue to add to that as well. So I've either been referred to solutions that we've talked to, or I use them myself. And that's been how we've gone about it. So
these are, and maybe you can give me an example of just pull one out of kind of almost a concierge-like network that you can refer clients to if they need a food plan. There's a resource that you have out there somewhere for them, or
yes.
maybe navigating the college process for their kids? There's a resource that you have out there somewhere, or
Well, definitely. So the college process is one of them, and that would fall under the financial planning. But whether there could be a food delivery program or a nutritionist that we have referred to people. But yes, we have a host of solutions and continue to add to the network.
interesting. Tell me a little bit about the if there's some way that you could characterize, or however you want to quantify, the growth trajectory of Conway. If folks are listening to this and think, it sounds great, but if I go through and try to be the life concierge for each one of my clients, that's taken the foot off the gas at other places. Can you somehow quantify the growth trajectory of Conway and how this has helped your firm?
For sure. So I would say it does indeed go back to the referral part of the story. It would really start, David, at the top of the funnel with getting the right client. And so who is your customer? What is their pain point or points? What are the issues they're trying to solve for? Can we as a business solve those problems? And can we articulate consistently to the market how we're solving those problems? And so if we're able to do that, so Conway, for instance, I mentioned a family steward is sort of a title that we would give somebody that we would love to have in our ecosystem. And we can't deliver all of the solutions if we're bringing on smaller clients. We can't deliver those solutions to everyone, so we're really looking for the right fit. But we have been able to replicate our family steward clients by referrals and introductions and bring in advisors that want to use the tools that we've built in our practice. So it's helped us grow significantly over the years.
Interesting. I imagine for a lot of the clients that you work with, the high net worth entrepreneurs, there's a level of also financial planning that isn't often found at your typical RIA. Maybe if we get into like tax planning or estate planning, trust services, et cetera. Are these the kinds of things that you also have a referral network for, or have you thought about bringing in-house some of those services? And how do you think about the economics of offering those kinds of ancillary services?
David, as it relates to financial planning,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we want to outsource. So we will do the comprehensive financial plan in-house. We'll use money management that we do internally, and we'll outsource the tax returns and the estate documents to professionals outside the firm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the economics of bringing in and doing the tax returns and acting as a law firm to do the wills and trusts. I don't think makes sense. So we would be doing all the planning in-house and then bringing in expertise to complete the tax work and the estate tax work.
Okay. Do you see a point in your trajectory where it would make sense to bring those professionals in-house under the roof, or do you think it's just economically wouldn't make sense regardless of the size of the firm?
I don't think I'm open to changing my mind, but as of right now, I don't think it would make sense to do that in-house at
Mm-hmm.
this point or in certainly the near future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So tell me about the investment process that you use with clients. So that is something you do in-house. What are the portfolios that you put together for clients? How bespoke are those? What are the kinds of value prop that you bring in terms of just purely the investment side of the business?
So one of the things that has changed fairly significantly for us is our investment solution seeds investor.
Mm-hmm.
something my son and I started several years ago, as we had this sort of epiphany as it related to money management. Everything was done off of, which still makes sense as it relates to money management, was done off time horizon and risk profile. Have to do that, right? You're putting together a detailed portfolio. But beyond that, what else is important to that investor? So it was kind of a one size fits all. That was the genesis of this company, Seeds Investor, to better assess investors and build personalized portfolios using their particular values and what is important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And David, the analogy that I use as it relates to this, we live in an experience economy. And all those years I was doing investment review sessions that were pretty much the same for every client. But we live in a different world. You go to Starbucks, you have an experience. When you watch Netflix at all?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, do you watch Netflix at all?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you think about it, when you turn Netflix on, you're getting curated solutions that they think you're going to enjoy. Does that make sense?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
if you like that, you'll like this. Yep.
Well, exactly. So guess what? So I get fed cowboy movies or army movies or even religious stuff that I like to view. But that's a different experience. So what we do at Seeds Investor is we through the assessment process there, we want to look at risk profile. We want to look at time horizon. But again, what is important to that investor? Are they the type of person that is more of an inward? Are they more values aligned? And we want to give back to them in their experience a highly effective portfolio with low tracking error, tax loss harvesting, and the type of experience they would expect in this experience economy. So as you do review sessions, the way I would talk to this person might be wildly different than the way I might present to somebody else. And Seeds Investor helps us do all of that and manage the portfolios.
RIA Edge West is designed to provide solutions for the most complex pay, personnel, and growth challenges that RIA leaders grapple with every single day. The event will start on October 7th with a new Tech for Growth Summit that will help elite advisors leverage technology to unlock business growth and create scalable, repeatable, yet personalized experiences for your clients. Join us October 7th through 9th in California. For more information or to register, visit informaconnect.com/RIA Edge West.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Seeds we know of as it's the relatively new platform, and you use, and I think there's some other investors in the platform as well, right? I think Ritholtz Wealth Management is an investor in Seeds, and
that is correct.
Some others, and would you characterize it as and this might be pejorative, and I don't mean it to be, but a kind of a ESG focused direct indexing kind of platform?
That's fair to an extent, but David, take it back to its root of that ESG label is really, it is a bad label, but does someone care about those things? If so, we should build a portfolio that aligns with their values. And if they don't care at all about that, their portfolio should align with their values. It's their values.
Sure. And this is gets around the often the criticism of ESG is that it's, kind of a cookie cutter value portfolio, right? That they assume all investors in the fund have the same outlook, and
they don't. They don't. It's their money. And so asking the questions and going beyond what we've done as an industry historically makes sense. So you ask about money management. We want to build low tracking error portfolios that align with people's values, that tax loss harvest across everything, help them meet their long-term objectives. We'll also as with most things, we will build in alternatives into a portfolio where we might have, dependent upon the client size, you build in alternative investments anywhere from 5 upwards to 20% of a portfolio as diversifiers. But again, it all ties back to what the client wants to do and their long-term objectives for sure.
Now, is Seeds the platform that every investor at Conway would they go through that process, or is it something that's deployed for certain clients?
The Seeds assessment is something we would take every client through.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
To discern what is the best output for them, and then we would make decisions from there on how portfolios and assets would get deployed.
There will be as well as anyone, an ongoing debate around the notion of values-based investing versus just make as much money for me as you possibly can type of investor. And the pendulum seems to swing back and forth. Working with the clients that you work with, it sounds like you believe that most investors would indeed perhaps sacrifice some basis points in return if the portfolio reflected their values or their view of the world.
No.
Okay, good.
No, because if you're someone that is concerned, I always use it's a somewhat silly example, but if you're someone that wants to clean up the ocean, shouldn't your views be incorporated into your portfolio? But as I said before, if the fiduciary model, returns matter, and if you're someone that doesn't care about even if you do care about it, you shouldn't sacrifice returns. And you may only care about returns and not care about values, but it's your money and you should be able to make those decisions as it relates to your overall portfolio. Mm-hmm. We often think, David, in terms of sacrifice and giving up as it relates to this, but we shouldn't have to do that.
Okay. Yep. The debate rages on around ESG in investing, and I tend to agree. I think that it doesn't necessarily is a detriment to returns. I guess what I'm getting at is your conversations that you have with clients. It sounds like the conversations are driven mostly by these value conversations, and not so much, well, you need X amount of dollars for this particular point in life, so let's make sure that this portfolio is giving you that return with the least amount of risk we could possibly take, but to get to that point of having that money available at that particular point in the future. Sounds like your conversations are a little bit different in that they are based around values. What does the client think is important in the world? Where do they want to deploy their capital to do the best work or the most efficient work they can do? It sounds like just a very different conversation that you have with clients when they walk in the door. Am I wrong about that?
It has to be, David, it has to be both.
Mm-hmm.
We have to help the client meet their long-term objectives, hard stop. But the point is they should be able to do that. And we need to help them do that and give them an experience that aligns with the way they see the world, whether or not they want a values-based portfolio or non-values-based portfolio. It's up to them. It's their money. It's their experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But those long-term financial objectives have to be met. You can't give up. I tell people, this is not pixie dust and unicorns, right? If the S&P is up 6% and you're up 2%, because your portfolio aligns a certain way, that's not a good solution. You need a diversified approach that aligns with your values and helps you meet your long-term objectives. That's what you're after.
What do you find, in the growth trajectory of your firm, the biggest obstacle? Where do you think, if you could choose one area where if things were just a little bit easier in that particular area, we would unlock a certain amount of growth beyond what we already enjoy. What are the bottlenecks, or what kind of holds back the growth? Where do you find the biggest challenge?
I think the is having consistency in strategy in the business. And so making sure you're doing a lot of work on the business, not just marketing or not just money management. It all has to be done. It all has to be done at a very, very high level. But having strategy with how you do reviews, how you take data, how you present things across the business needs to be scalable and repeatable. You can't figure out every morning when you turn the lights on how to run your business. You've got to have a practice that the whole team is pulling on the oars in the same direction. It's scalable and repeatable. And if you don't have those processes in place, you're going to end up with all kinds of pain points in the business. So as it relates to the financial plan, the money management, the review process, all of it needs to be detailed and ironed out. So all the team members, from the ops, I call it, all the way down to the CEO, everybody knows how the meetings work and what are the processes for each part of the plan.
Mm-hmm. Are there any metrics that you could share that you keep an eye on that would tell you that it's time to add a financial advisor, or that it's time to add a paraplanner or add another operations assistant? How do you know when those points are what tells you that it's the point to go out and hire or to bring in additional resources? Is it just an AUM number, or is it do you have something around number of advisors to clients, or
it's typically done in the neighborhood. It's not an exact number, but in the neighborhood of about 75 families per advisor. Mm-hmm. And some of the things, David, we've talked about today with deep financial planning, the Life and Wealth Network, Seeds Investor. If I find anywhere in the business and with the executives at Conway that service begins to slip in any way as it relates to all of those things and process, then it's time to add additional people, whether it be an advisor or operations people. So we look at the metrics in AUM and households.
And how would you know when service begins to slip? Is there a point where, a couple of disgruntled phone calls is one thing, but a certain number of feedback on advisor survey or client surveys or something? How do you get to the point where okay, clients are less than happy with this particular process or this particular area, so time to act?
We do stand-up meetings weekly on Mondays with executives at Conway, mm-hmm. and we're drilling down on, we're looking to run a raving fans solution, and we want to make sure that we keep that consistency. So when we get to that magic number right around 75, could be 80, but in that neighborhood, we're going above that, I know service will slip, so we add.
Okay.
We're also, it's, the railroad, you feel the vibration of the train. We want to listen for as we send surveys out to our clients each year, what's the feedback we're getting? If we're getting exceptional feedback, and we know we're on track. If we're getting any issues that pop up, we know we need to dust things off and make sure we're staffed properly or make tweaks in that process. So I think it's families, I think it's weekly meetings, and it's getting constant feedback from the team on how they're doing and how they're doing with the families they work for.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the families that you serve, how much of your future growth is uh, assumed based on your ability to bring in the next generation of clients' kids, right? I mean, the kids of clients. So it sounds like you work with a lot of high net worth families, probably some intergenerational wealth.
Yes.
I imagine keeping that money close to home is important. Can you tell me a little bit about your family services, how you bring the younger children of clients into the conversations? I imagine some of them are professionals themselves, but don't yet quite have enough money to maybe be part of the Conway Wealth client base, but obviously are on a track to be so. Tell me a little bit about how you engage families.
It is a big deal, and I think we as an industry fail. What is the stat? Something like I don't know, 85% of children will leave their parents' financial advisor when they inherit their folks' wealth.
Yeah.
We really work hard to talk to the kids of our clients. In particular, we spend so much time about that consistency I talked about before, bringing these family stewards into our ecosystem. We want the kids of those folks in our business 10 years, 15, 20 years from now. So we proactively, when we're doing our reviews with our clients, one of the things that I do and have the team build is we actually do a family tree for our clients. What's the most important? What do we want to talk about? We want to talk about our tribe. We want to talk about our people. I want my advisors to know everybody in that family ecosystem and who we should be speaking with. So we go deep on that. So we'll talk about the entire family, and then we'll be talking about the kids and scheduling review sessions with them and beginning the building blocks of their plan, so that they're ready as they inherit wealth and with their own personal wealth as they grow.
That's great. Michael, I know we're getting the the hook here from our producers. I know we're at the maximum amount of time, so you've been generous enough with your time. So thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for the conversation. I learned something about Conway Wealth, and I think our audience did too. Thanks for joining us.
David, thanks a million. It was great to speak with you today. I appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to the RIA Edge Podcast. Schwab Advisor Services is a proud supporter of the RIA Edge Podcast and independent financial advisors like you. When it comes to your independence, Schwab Advisor Services is all in. They provide industry-leading custody services with no AUM minimums, no custody fees, and digital onboarding for starters. With Schwab, you'll be backed by some of the most passionate folks in the industry with over 35 years of experience helping firms of all sizes. To learn more about everything Schwab can do for you, visit advisorservices.schwab.com.